It's the Awake Space, and I'm Laurie Rivers, your host, here to help you with some inspiration to get those aspirations out into the world. Well, I'm re-recording the podcast because every time I try to get it in the bag ahead of time, guess what happens? I got to do it over. And this time there's a really good reason. Thanks to you, our listeners, we have reached over 1 million downloads and plays. You've listened 1 million, over 1 million. It's actually like 1,136,000. And that's across all platforms. That's across all platforms. And I have changed hosts. I mean, that's not actually counting the 45,000 that I had way back in 2023 on a different platform. I honestly didn't start taking this seriously until about 2023. I started this in my backyard in 2021 just to mouth off because I had been censored on TikTok. In fact, I got banned for nudity wearing a turtleneck, and I was done with it. And so I just started this to have a place to speak my mind, help people with information, and give you some tools to use that information. And that's how the Awake Space was born. And thank you to the person who probably doesn't listen anymore, who left a frustrated review saying, all I did was ramble. I was really knowledgeable. They'd like to learn from me, and they wanted it in a format. And that was back in 2021. And that's where we got that introduction. And I gave the show a format way back when we had 65 subscribers, because I thought, man, 65 people, I can't fit them in my living room. So I have always been grateful for every single listen, for every single person who wants to tune in to what we have to say here at the Awake Space. And with the best of London coffee, which is actually pretty good, with really good whole milk. And if you're lactose intolerant, don't worry, I'll drink the milk for you. Cheers. 1 million downloads. What a great way to kick off the new moon in Gemini. What a great way to kick off the new moon in Gemini. And no, the moon was not new in Gemini when I saw it. In fact, what's really funny is we probably passed the 1 million mark back in April. I just don't look at my statistics. And the reason why is we are 100% listener supported. There's a lot of work and a lot of investment that goes into this podcast, from the software subscriptions, which are not cheap. They cost hundreds of dollars a month, to the equipment that we use, hiring an editor to make clips for me. Shout out to Tylin, my other kid, to the time it takes. So I do the editing for the main podcast because I'm usually filming on the fly. And so I don't want to drive some poor editor nuts. It takes, for every hour, it takes 2 to 3 hours of editing. So it takes a lot of time, a lot of planning. And there's everything else I have to do with Woke Astrology and the astrologers, the Patreon, managing our community. And thanks to Alicia for all that she does in there. At least I have Ralph now as the archivist taking care of my predictions and proof. And in fact, I've got to get out the May PDF he made because it's really cool. I am floored. I am floored. I have always said, without you, there is no podcast. There is no me. And so it is with absolute gratitude that I want to thank you for helping us reach this really cool milestone. Not bad. We are self-produced, and sometimes it really shows. We do our best, and we're growing, but it's really, really important to me that we don't have corporate sponsorships, that we don't have ads. If you have ads, it's because whatever player you're listening to is putting them in, because I don't make any ad revenue. The only revenue for this podcast comes from our Awake Space community, which, if you join as a new member on an annual subscription, you save $50 on the first year. So I urge you to do so. There is so much content. A lot of people feel like they can't keep up. Don't worry, you don't have to keep up. Grab what you can. I will always be a fire hose. In fact, if you want to know more about Venus in Leo, I went through that with our magazine subscribers, and we talked about the Gemini moon, and I took you on a walk around Chelsea here in London. and we went to the church that Charles Dickens was married in. It's got a beautiful little park and it's a pretty building. And so I took us on a walk. So if you want to catch that, that is up in the community. You can just go to the awakespacepodcast.com to find our community. I am still floored. I happened to be fixing my link tree because I'm really bad about that, keeping it up to date. And I was just working on it. And I logged into my hosting backend to grab the share link. And I went, what? Wait a minute. When did we get to 1.1 million listens? When did that happen? And I've been on cloud nine ever since. So the link tree is all fixed. I'll put that in the show notes. And we're going to talk a little bit about Venus and Leo. If you want the details about where it's transiting in your chart, you can head over to the community. I did the house by house breakdown and magazine subscribers. Make sure you download the magazine. I know somebody reported they were having a hard time downloading it on the app. I gave it a try. I was like, oh, wait, it's not. And then it popped up. There's a delay on the download on the phone app. So don't press it a bunch of times in frustration. It'll pop up a bunch of times. That's what happened to me. But anyway, every single month I put out the Awake Space magazine. You get articles, you get really valuable horoscopes. These aren't what you read in Cosmo. This is how to use the energy, because remember, knowledge isn't power unless you know how to use it. And I always believe in giving people the tools they need to surf the cosmic tide. Doesn't mean there won't be problems, doesn't mean there won't be frustrations, doesn't mean that real life doesn't happen. But if you have better tools, you can navigate challenges better. And that's what I'm here to do with you. That's why I'm working so hard on getting Living by Luna out, which is a journaling process that really helps you see your own ebb and flow of energy throughout the lunar cycle every month, and then Healing the Money Wound, the framework for rebuilding confidence, value, and wealth. Got that recorded in studio. I went out to Hackney in East London at Noah Tune Studios and worked with an absolutely wonderful, wonderful sound engineer to make that work. And so everything's coming together. I'm sending in the very last revisions because I thought I had all the interior, all the copy fixed. And when you're reading every single word, you get to find where those big errors are. There was a couple things where I was like, in fact, even on the recording, it'll be funny to edit because there's a point where I went, God, like, how did an entire sentence go away? So I got those all fixed. They're going into Book Baby. That's where we're publishing through. It will be distributed everywhere books are sold. Very, very excited. It's important to me to stay independent and interdependent with my audience. I think that's where the proof is in the pudding. It's not enough to just take the bag. You've got to have a relationship with the people you're working with. And that's very, very important to me. And it's a way I can blaze a trail and help other people know that you too can want to mouth off and start a podcast on your phone in your backyard with a donkey bring. And it can end up being something that forever changes your life. Thank you. Thank you. So we're going to talk a little bit about Venus and Leo. We've got another episode of the Astrologers Roundtable with the ineffable Damien Shelby and Susie, our astrologers at Woke Astrology. I'm going to talk a little bit about our plans moving forward because I'm going to be teaching more. That's right. I'm going to be teaching more. We're going to be doing stuff with Living by Luna. I'm reworking the information in Laurie's test lab to make it a little more streamlined, a little less therapized, because it's really about taking what you want to do or figuring out what you want to do and then doing it. Okay. So the problem is people get up in their heads and then things don't move forward. So we're making it as I've always wanted it to be, a really focused action planning process that distills you authentically. So you're operating from your interior self. Plus, we have Healing the Money Wound. That's all. That'll come out later this year. I don't want to push it. I don't want to jump the gun. I know you're hungry for it, but I don't want to push it. I want to do it right. So I'll talk a little bit more about what our plans are, but we're rolling with what the universe is delivering because it's been really, really good so far. It's been a wonderful trip. I feel restored. I've worked very, very hard, but hard work isn't always what's called for. Sometimes we need rest and restoration. That has very much come into play. All right, get your tea, get your coffee, get your Red Bull, get your H2O, get your matcha. And whether we are going to work, folding the laundry, putting it out on the line if you're like my mom, whether we're cooking breakfast or having a lion or walking in the park or doing a workout, do please work my core. Thank you. I took you all on a walk, well, at least magazine subscribers. Well, whatever we're doing, we'll do it together. I am floored. I am absolutely floored to reach 1 million listens. That's such a big number to conceptualize. I do have a request. Wherever you're listening from, please do check us out on all of our socials. We're on Instagram. We're on TikTok, of course. And if I've not been coming up on your FYP, please search me out. Please search me out and comment. If you comment on a video, you get more of that creator's work at least a couple of times. So make sure you like, share. It really, really helps. If you're wondering, that's why I promise I'll do more social media beyond the clips of the podcast. I was so tired in honestly, last couple of years. It was so much, even before the election. That's why I moved out to Wyoming. I needed the quiet. I needed to repair. Being late aware on being neurospicy, it was just a lot of change and rapid growth at one time. And that's a lot. Even when you're an astrologer and you know good things are coming, your nervous system still goes, what? And so this was the break I really needed, because even though I have the quiet in Wyoming, I stayed up with the habit of just like work, 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 work. And that's great. That's what got us 2 books coming out this year. That's what's brought the podcast to new places. We're doing new branding. If you hadn't noticed, we've got new cover art. That photo was taken at a fun photo shoot. And yeah, there's more coming on that. There's all kinds of upgrades coming. Every once in a while, you need a little hope. And the next one, I think that's fabulous. I think it's especially great since when Trump went to the game, they lost and then they won everything else. So a little bit like, hey, he's the bad luck guy. As a Portland Trailblazers fans, Knicks, I see you. I remember the win in the 1970s for the Trailblazers. I was 9. It was 1978. And I'll never forget that. It was just like when the Seahawks won the Super Bowl for the first time. When you've been a diehard fan, win or lose, those wins are precious. And that's kind of how I feel about our podcast. We're a little guy. And I will always be dedicated in community. My goal is to get as much information out to as many people as we can, but we will always be our own production company and have editorial control. And if you've ever met me, I will tell someone to F all the way off if they want me to compromise my ethics. So as we grow, you are still the priority as the listener. You gaining the knowledge, and not just the knowledge, but the tools to use it, because knowledge isn't power. Unless you know how to use it, you can have a head full of facts, and it doesn't mean a damn thing if you don't take action on it. I'm watching the time. If you're like, why does she keep looking down? Because I've got to go catch a train. I'm about to go do some things for myself. I'm going to the dentist. I have a lot of dental trauma. And I have had multiple surgeries. I crashed in 1979. It wasn't 78, 79. Before I turned 10, I crashed on my bicycle and killed my mouth. And we didn't wear helmets, and I didn't put rubber bands on my bell-bottom jeans, and they got caught in the chain, and I took a hill with my face. In fact, there was no skin on my face. That's why I have this little scar. That's not a line. That's not a wrinkle. My tooth went through my lip. And so I have suffered and struggled with dental procedures, and I have redhead genes. I know I don't look like a redhead, but I got the genes. And so Novocaine wears off really fast. I've woken up in dental procedures when they've put me out. That was fun. And no, I didn't get amnesia from what they gave. They're like, you'll not remember this. Oh no, I remember. I remember the whole damn day. There's a few hazy bits, but I remember a lot. More than I should. And so it's just when you've gone through a lot of trauma with something, I think it's the last bit. Like I healed the PTSD for life functioning, but the dental stuff, and I'm not the only person my age and older who has, because dentistry has come a long way. But I found one, well, actually, my daughter found one. And so I'm going out today to do some assessments and get ready because I may go to Turkey for it, but I want to hear what they have to say first. And so getting ourselves taken care of, self-care, and important things as we get older, right? They're not going to do any emergency procedures today or anything. It's just, anyway. So I recorded a whole other podcast. So I'll probably go through some of that and we'll have that on here as well. I talk about Venus and Leo, and I think that's what you're going to hear next. We've got patron shout outs, the Astrologers Roundtable. Why do I do patron shout outs? Again, without the support of community, this doesn't happen. If I told you what the software costs to run this and more than one, you'd go, it's like rent in a big city. So your financial support is wonderful, but you don't just support it with nothing coming back to you. There's so much support, and the community is absolutely unparalleled. Unparalleled. And again, I'm most proud of our gardening. I think people taking their food and understanding their food is taking that into their hands. And no, nobody's growing their full caloric needs, but what they are is getting the satisfaction and the knowledge of what it takes to make things happen for themselves and what they put in their bodies. And there's nothing like making a fresh garden salad in the summer. So I'm really, really proud of the thousands of people who are now gardening because of listening to this podcast and my warning you about needing to take care of your food needs. And when we look at inflation and groceries, my God, those of you raising kids and got the preteens and the teens and growth spurts, my hat's off to you. I had to do that through the Great Recession. And yeah, so I know exactly where you are with it. So thank you for joining. That's why I opened up to new members. I can't do it for older members. But if you've been a member and you had to slide out because you just needed to cut down on expenses, you can join. Try it, especially if it's been a couple of years, because we're going to be doing a lot more talk around living by Luna. That's going to be available. It's going to be available for our astrology cruise. So people who really want to learn astrology, that's going to be there. But I'll have some material available on its own website that you will enjoy. Okay, so there'll be more coming up on that. But anywho, I'm starting to get a little distracted because I've got to get on the train. So I hope you enjoy this week's episode. Please follow us on all the socials. I need to grow that Instagram account. So if you could follow us on Instagram, I'm biting the bullet and doing what my daughter has told me to do because as a double Virgo, she's always right. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for getting us to 1 million listens. I am flabbergasted. My gasted is flabbered. And thank you to Gabby West for saying, hey, I don't know. How do I measure myself? So there will be an assessment. I will have room for maybe 20 people maximum. So we might offer it a couple times a year. So this is something that has to be done in person. It won't be just recorded. You have to agree to participation to be I have exacting standards when it comes to professional work. So if you just want to learn astrology, we have resources for that. And if you're just beginning your journey, I have resources for that. But if you want to be a pro, then you got to show up. So anyway, I'll have more information about that in the coming weeks. So let's talk about Venus and Leo. And then we'll do patron shout outs and then the Astrologers Roundtable with Damien Shelby and Susie and myself. And thank you to Peyton in Australia for doing the edits on that for me. Did a beautiful job. And then we'll wind it up with some other blabbering or some other nonsense. Who knows? Who knows? But if you've been on the fence of joining our community, please do. Please do. It's an incredible place where we walk together, we grow together, and people get the tools and skills they need to make a difference in their life. And if you're a P-Train, put it in the comments wherever you're listening to this. Let people know how it's helping you. It's another episode of the Astrologers Roundtable. We're here. Welcome back, everybody. Today, we are talking about how someone can prepare for a reading with us, because not everybody is used to having astrology readings, or they confuse us with psychic readings, which, you don't ever feed a psychic. You don't need to. That's their job. But astrologers actually need something to run with. Now, all three of you are individuals who interpret it within the bounds of progressive evolutionary astrology, but you all have your own preferences. And I thought we'd talk a little bit about how people can get the most out of their readings with you. Who would like to go first?
I'll start by saying this in true Virgo fashion: be specific.
Okay.
Because when we see a chart for a consultation, we see everything. So if you come in with a plan in mind, maybe, you want a different job, maybe you're wondering if that relationship or that marriage isn't serving you anymore, or maybe it's one of those situations where you just want to make a complete pivot, burn it all down, and restart your life all over again. Whatever it may be, giving us something to run with and to work with will really help us hone it in. Otherwise, there's just so many moving parts that are floating up in the air that sometimes it could be hard to pin down too many things at once. So being able to be a little more specific and hone in on something and have some kind of goal in mind too. What do you want to get out of the reading? What's your goal with this reading? Because if you have something of, I want to get some kind of reassurance out of this, I want to get some kind of confidence out of this, any kind of little goal, that'll really help us out too with steering you where you need to go.
Powerful, Shelby. Powerful.
Everything she said.
Right? What she said. Well, this episode's over. She just said it. But anyway.
I was just like, we don't need to say anything.
Yeah, she said it all. Well done, Shelbs. And you're exactly right. When people come in saying, "Tell me my purpose," we can. It's probably not what you think it's going to be. It's not be a doctor or a nurse or a priest or a priestess or whatever. But everybody also, what advice would you give whoever's ready to say it next? I hate calling on people, so it's more like I like people to fight for it.
Damien, would you like to go next, or
I can go. So what advice? I love when you come with if you have 3 specific questions, because that's a really good framework, and in the time that we work with, that's enough time to answer them. One of my favorite readings that I ever did was somebody had 3 specific questions, and one of the questions was they were looking to get a house, and they were like, maybe it'll be towards the end of the year, I'm thinking. And I looked at, because of the specificity of their asking, I was able to look at the transits. I was like, oh no, that house is coming right now.
I know who you're talking about. They say
it was even
all the time.
It was even faster than what I had even seen, simply because of the transits occurring. And that was a learning point for me, because I was like, the time is being sped up, and it was beautiful. So being really specific, being really keenly focused, is so useful, because that will allow us to zero in. And this being specific will then leapfrog to other insights. Like, you can come in, generally, if you want to, and just be like, hey, sort of what's generally happening. But the specificity will leapfrog you to your next level to show you what's coming and next, that even more specific than what you just asked. It creates those bridges, and that is so very useful.
Yeah, and we can see what area of life is being lit up by the transits. So if somebody can be like, I don't know, I just need to, I feel really weird these days, and my brain is foggy. I mean, we can see what's going on and say, well, do you want to talk about work? Do you want to talk about what's going on at home? Do you want to, and we can ask prompting questions, but you really will get more out of it when you are specific. Those were great examples, and I can't remember who it was, but they say it in the Patreon all the time. So about
That
that
house had a
yeah.
pool. They got a house with a pool. I'm so
I
excited.
love that. We get to be part of that. Suze.
I feel like this Astro van needs a little sign that says Virgo's on board.
Right.
Right. I always open, and for people who've had the readings already, I open every reading with, how can I be most impactful for you?
Mm-hmm.
That for me is the thing, because we can see everything, just like Shelby said, and there may be areas lighting up. And if you're asking about other things, I may say, hey, what's going on here? And let you direct me whether you want to have, right? Because we can discuss a whole manner of things. And I have flaws. I try not to make denial one of them. I have a Gemini Mercury, so I'm happy to discuss a manner of, various things. But you lead. Yes, I do like questions. A lot of times I find myself doing solar returns, or halfway through the solar return, like, tell me what's coming up next. Like, where should I put my energy? Where should I? But for me, the most important thing is to make sure that you're not nervous, that no matter what we see, we're going to judge you. That's never what we're going to do. And
It's
that
a safe container.
And that if you feel challenges, like, we are looking ahead, and that gives you the way to meet whatever the transits are, and that's the whole beauty of it. So to not be nervous coming in, and also respectfully, it's not an astrology lesson. Laurie has great classes, but I can't take all of my years of experience and and hand it to you to explain how I saw something or why something is turning out that way. So
it's like asking a poet to explain the verse that's just flown through their fingers.
There's so many layers.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So it's
if it took me years to get here, I can't give it to you in a 5 minutes.
Yeah, and we got classes coming up, so
take 100%.
Right. So coming with and it's hard when you haven't met somebody before. We make sure this is a trusted environment. So the first part of each session is we might try to razzle dazzle a little bit to prove our accuracy in a gentle way or a fun way. I used to tell people what kind of car they probably liked. It's like, oh, you're not really into brand names. You want to make sure it's fuel efficient, right? And they'd be like, holy crap, how'd you come up with that? Or, oh, you like a fly set of wheels, you're not going to put up with a clunker, that kind of thing. But each one of us has our own styles. What can be most important to understand is that astrologers have always historically been advisors. Okay, we're not therapists. We do not therapize, but we do equip people with tools. And if we see someone might need a little more support professionally, we can say, ooh, there's a lot going on in your life right now. Do you have professional support? And you're like, I hate talk therapy. And you're like, yeah, have you tried this? If we know of other modalities, this might be more useful because of this. those are all things that can happen in one of our consultations. Everything in life is in that chart. So if you are confused and befuddled, it's okay to tell us, I'm seeking clarity. There's so much going on right now, and my life has been crazy. You don't have to tell us every little detail. We can see life is crazy, that you've got a lot going on, etc. It's enough to say, I want clarity. Because as Susie asked, how can I be most impactful? I start with, how can I support you? We all have our own rhythm, but with evolutionary astrology, especially progressive evolutionary astrology, we're trying to gently extricate that box of shoulds and woulds and coulds into possibilities that are specifically tailored for you. Any other thoughts, like favorite readings where people were like really prepared? How does that help you? Help them?
We don't have to really guess. We can just kind of go on into the thing, like just target the problem head on and face it head on instead of having to maybe tiptoe around it or run away from it. Like, we'll help you look at that problem head on, look at it through an astrological lens, like objectively, and be able to see, okay, this part of your life's pretty magnified right now, this part of your life's going a little slow right now, but it might speed up once you get the sun leaving your 12th house or something like that. Any of these types of transits. So it just really helps and translates that, like, you don't have to be afraid of whatever problem is coming up. We can pick it apart for you and show it to you in a way that it's not so scary.
Yeah. And likewise, if stuff is going well, and you're waiting for the other shoe to drop, I mean, raise your hand if you've ever been there, like, holy crap, I'm used to all the bad things happening, and suddenly it's good, and I don't know what to do with this. Is it going to last? And I remember I've asked people in my own experience, like when I went to an astrologer or even a psychic, I'd be like, I'm a little nervous. Everything's good right now. Is it going to stay that way? Do I get to keep it? And we can say, look, that hard time you went through was a once in a lifetime thing. You will never have to face those issues in the same way again. That is such a gift. Don't you love doing that?
All the Taurus risings celebrate right now, especially if you're late.
Congratulations.
Right, because that Uranus is done with your 12th house and your ascendant, right? And
yeah. And Gemini raisings
are great to say to somebody.
Yeah, Gemini raisings don't have to be as scared. Don't listen to the astrologers on TikTok because most of them aren't really astrologers anyway.
Yeah. Gemini's gonna fly.
Gemini can eat this energy. You'll be like, finally, the world is moving as fast as my brain.
The stimulation of Uranus is Gemini's friend.
Yeah, because Uranus is the higher octave of Mercury, so it's a much more amenable energy. Just watch where you're walking. That's all. Pay attention.
Slow down a little bit.
Thing that Laurie said about, it's different than a psychic reading. My one big piece of advice actually is that you don't have to kind of make sure that we know what's going on in your life by seeing if we get the context right or seeing that's going to happen. We're going to say things that you're going to be like, oh, wow, it'll happen. But please don't. And I understand that sometimes there could be a timidness because it's a private question or it feels sensitive or you're just meeting us. Please don't say the biggest question that's deepest in your heart for the last 5 to 10 minutes because I want to help. It is literally my life's mission to be here and give people the tools. I want to teach the man to fish. I want to give you the tools so that not only can you meet this challenge, but then the next time a challenge comes, you're like, oh, I have that tool because I learned that tool in my astrology session, right? And it was in your chart. I didn't give it to you. It was already in your chart. I just kind of, shined a light
at it the whole time.
Yeah. But please don't. And personally, honestly, for me, I had a whole career where I heard everything before I was an astrologer. It was also before I could take chemicals and sharp implements to people. I had to get them to be comfortable in about 5 minutes to 10 minutes. So like, I promise you will get comfortable. And if your level of comfort is that's okay, that's on your clock. But we're never gonna judge.
We've heard it. Astrologers,
We have heard.
Confidentiality
And
matters.
I'm old.
And
Yeah.
to piggyback on what Susie's saying, we are your biggest cheerleaders. We are rooting for you so hard because like it likely if you're seeing us, maybe there's been some things that have happened, but we're going to show you the way forward. And the specificity will show like, you know, hey, this time of troubles is over. You know, you're not going to be necessarily seeing this happen again. This transit was once in a lifetime, like Laurie said. And with the specificity, then we can map your path forward and we can show you the possibilities of all that you are. Don't feel afraid, be excited about the future because we are so in your corner. We want you to shine.
Right. And in the next episode, we're going to be talking about how we communicate things that are happening to our clients, whether it's good, negative, neutral, so that you guys get an idea of what happens in a session. And some of you already know. And if you do, please put it in the comments, you know, like how you came out of it, because there's so much free information, not all of it's good information on the internet, that people can really fear some of those bigger transits. And if you haven't learned astrology at all, you just know maybe your big three, and that's not knowing astrology, guys. It's really, it's kindergarten level understanding. And that's not dissing. I love kindergartners. They're amazing, but it's not actual astrology yet.
A lot of layers.
Yeah, tons of layers.
Not the recipe.
Yeah, exactly. That's why in professional circles, like even when I was a baby astrologer, it was called cookbook astrology because until you know how to make that, it's all just ingredients. But when you're hearing about Uranus shifting signs, like we joked about it, right? There's a lot of people who are scared because they don't understand, and people will leverage ignorance to take advantage of you. That's why we do a lot of education. That's why we have the Astrologers Roundtable. We can help you in a reading see that train coming, what feels like a train, and we're stuck on the tracks, right? Whether it's a Pluto transit or a Saturn transit, those are the ones that get the biggest bad rap. And we can say, hey, you might get shaken and stirred. This is why, and this is where it will take you. And if you're equipped to manage those things, then there's more you can do with it. That's why, and we'll see that, you know, we can see that. You don't have to tell us Pluto's coming. We'll be like, yeah, I know. More times than not, I'll get that in a reading. Oh, Saturn's coming. I'm like, yeah, Saturn ain't touching that for another year and a half. You're good.
Or Mars is going to hit this. Mars hits it every year. You're fine.
Yeah. Every 26
also
months.
Pluto, like a train on the tracks, like you get to a point too where you go from feeling like you're tied to the tracks while Pluto's coming, where you realize Pluto's coming to rescue you. Pluto's coming to help you. Same thing with Uranus.
The rope's untied.
Yeah. It's the resistance.
And I know we get a lot of anecdotals, you know, of this happened and this person passed away or this person got sick or I had this thing. And I am not being cold when I say that is part of life. And sometimes those transits represent that, but not every time. It can be a bucket of things. So, but we'll talk about that more in the next episode where we talk about how we communicate the information. The one thing you really need to understand is you're not paying for the time. You're paying for the results and the outcomes of the session. And I know most people earn an hourly wage, but there's a lot that goes into a consultation that outstrips the hour, the 45 minutes. You're getting the results and the knowledge, the assurance, the references, because in order to be a good astrologer, you have to have a lot of background knowledge. So, and in different ways. So you're gaining the experience of the consultant. So that's something important. But if each one of you guys had one thing, just one sentence you could leave everybody with, what would it be?
I'm a big fan of know before you go. If you know what's the transits are, then you can ride them instead of getting hit by them.
Say that it's going to work out. It may not work out exactly how you think it's going to work out, but the universe always has a funny way of giving you the results that you didn't think you would go down that one path to get to where you wanted to go. You thought you would be taking a different one, but yeah, that's pretty much it.
Almost like expect the unexpected, because like it's not going to be necessarily the loud dramatics. It's more the quiet soft that shows up, and it is just as beautiful. So,
because life is made up of seemingly inconsequential moments. That's where most of life happens, but they're determinate on where you go next. So you guys rock. So good to be back together.
yes, I miss this.
Right. So next episode is about how we communicate the chart. And it's not an astrology lesson, but how we actually work with clients to help maximize the information they can walk away and use. Have a good one, guys. Man, I love hanging out with those astrologers. We haven't gotten to hang out while I've been traveling, just time zones and life, and we've all been doing our due individually. Make sure you check our calendars, and you can save 10% as a listener of the show. If you are a member of our community, you save when you use your special code in June with Damien, Susie, and Shelby. Any of their 1 hour readings. They're amazing. I need to change my glasses. I need to have my reading. All right. So we're going to talk about Venus in Leo. It has moved into Leo. And so we're going to do that coming up next. Venus entered Leo and we had that new moon in Gemini. If you're in the Awake Space community, you know what to do with that new moon because I went through it for you in a live stream and I've reposted that live stream. So you have access to that. Venus in Leo. The diva is in the house. Here's the thing. All of us get the benefit of Venus and Leo. She's going to be kissing at least a house in your chart. She may not, like for me, she's still in the 9th house. She's moving towards my midheaven. Yay. Happens once every 14 months. You really want to you want to spiff up. You want to feel that energy. Even if Venus makes squares in your chart, like by transit. These are creative. These are not bad. Enjoy it. Everybody gets to be queen or king, okay? And it's in Pride Month, so everybody be queen, okay? Big shout out to one of our patrons who decided they were a gender anarchist. Oh, that was great. That's perfect as we head into Venus and Leo season. We got 4 weeks of that energy. 4 weeks of that energy. And it's just a really good time to zhuzh it up. Zhuzh it up. Now, that doesn't mean you have to go be a spendthrift or blow your wad. You could take like a favorite t-shirt and bedazzle it. You could get new buttons. That's one of my favorite tricks for, let's say you go thrifting and you find a cute jacket, but it needs a little something, something. Get new buttons. Spend money on some good buttons and you can turn a coat that was good into zhuzh. There are all kinds of ways to upscale yourself without breaking the bank. Yes, the economy is economy. Doesn't mean you can't have a good and satisfying experience. Venus and Leo is also about confidence. Again, who's queen? Watch our posture. Take care of ourselves. Moisturize. All right. And confidence. Confidence. Confidence isn't arrogance. It's okay to know you're good at stuff. It's okay to know what you're good at and know what you're not good at. It's okay to say, I'm good at that. But the one problem is that Venus and Leo often seeks approval from other people. They want to be crowned queen. You got to know your queen. Okay. Know it. I learned that from Sister Claudia Foltz, my voice teacher, who I mentioned earlier in the podcast. And I started studying with her when I was 13. I didn't necessarily want to be a classical singer. I did not. I actually wanted to sing rock and roll and be like Heart. And her response to that was, that's a shame. So when I got to be 14 or 15 and started doing competitions, she had me learn presence. Like we started with presence at 13, but it was more like I was learning how to speak again, how to breathe, and how to stand up and hold. And you'll see, if you saw any of the videos of behind the scenes from my recording, you'll see when I'm recording, I'm up straight, I'm got my diaphragm working, I'm breathing. I don't always do that every day, but having stage presence, being able to have presence on the camera, I learned all of that in voice lessons as a teenager. I studied with her for years and I did a lot of competitions and turned down a lot of full ride scholarships in music because I didn't want to study music. I just liked performing. And here we are, But one of the things she would say, because I was very, very shy, and I would, I'd be like this, and my head would be down, and she'd be like, "You are queen." And she would have me set my presence. And I had a hard time understanding that. Like, how am I queen? I'm 14. We didn't have the internet and there weren't a ton of examples. And then I went to a Eurythmics concert. It was the 1984 tour. And no, Annie Lennox does not have a Venus in Leo, but she is queen on stage. And when she took that stage, she took the audience. She grabbed all of us as she stepped through this curtain. And I was like, oh, that's what she's talking about. That's power, man. That's power. That woman owns all of us right now. And so you don't have to say you're important. You don't have to announce your power. When you have power, when you have an understanding of self, you don't have to say anything. You just show up being it. And that's just that highest level of the Leo Venus energy. We all get to have a taste of it, where we don't have to announce how tough we are. We don't have to announce how smart we are. We don't have to announce how good we are. If people say, "Who are you? Who do you think you are?" You know who you are. You'd be like, "Why do I owe you an explanation?" I am who I am. Who are you? Stop looking to be crowned queen or king. You don't need other people to tell you who you are. You need to know who you are. It is no one else's job to understand you. It is your job to understand you. That's why we study astrology, right? Is to understand ourselves, not to put ourselves in a box, not to put ourselves with another bunch of labels, not to limit our potential or our future, but to expand it. And if you have confidence in yourself, so look for those areas in life where you have confidence in yourself. We're going to hear a lot about minerals, gold, silver, platinum, uranium, lithium, any of the precious metals, gems. That we'll hear a lot about that in the outer world. We'll hear a lot about money in the economy and the so-called elite. I don't really think of them as elite. I think of them as, they think they are, I guess. I've gone through this in the awake space, house by house. We all get benefit from this Venus in Leo. And all of us benefit depending on the house. Now, if you're a Leo Venus, this is your Venus return, and it's a really good opportunity to look at bringing in that which you want most. That's what you're looking at. What are you bringing in for yourself? What matters most to you? What makes you feel most secure? And a lot of times we look at money for that security, but just like in healing the money wound, I emphasize that money represents something that leads to security, but it isn't security in and of itself. And I know that's hard when you're working 5 jobs and trying to pay your rent, because money does solve that problem, but it doesn't solve every problem. And money isn't evil. The love of money is evil. Thinking money is the answer, is the evil. But money itself is inert. It's neither good nor bad. It just is. It's the attitudes around it that causes trouble. And so with Venus and Leo, it's really about having a stateliness, a queenliness, a kingliness, a sense of nobility inside of ourselves. Real nobility is humble. People who are really good and really confident, they don't need to go announcing it to everybody. They don't. Because if you do, you're insecure. If you need everybody to notice you, you're insecure. If you have to tear other people down, you're insecure. People who are into dominance and control, and I'm not talking about the fun kind, people who need to oppress other people who can't handle a level playing field, they're so insecure. And you know who I'm talking about. So with this Venus and Leo, you get this really great opportunity to show up for yourself wherever she's kissing your chart. And if you need help finding out where Venus is transiting your chart, you can head over to the Awake Space community. I have free resources like how to find your transits, how to make your natal chart, how to find the degrees in your chart. I have little walkthrough videos for you. Come on. Come on. And we're still in the new moon period with the Gemini new moon. And this new moon is all about communication. If you get the magazine, remember you have your journal prompts for setting your intentions. I'll give you guys a little taster. Why should you be in the magazine tier? Well, this is why, because I give so much information. I was joking with somebody the other day that basically every month I write a novella. So bad, so bad. Every month I write a novella. All right, our new moon in June. What this new moon is doing, and this is from page 40 in the magazine. The new moon in Gemini opens the door to new ideas, conversations, and possibilities. Gemini energy is curious. That I would say that is the big one with Gemini. It's like, what does this do? I wonder what'll happen if. Those are great. Lead with your intention. I wonder what'll happen if. It asks questions, explores options, and gathers information before committing to a direction. The default arena, and I'm using the term arena instead of houses because I think that just helps us comprehend it a little differently. Learning, communication, connections, opportunity. So third house. That's the default. Like if you have a natural chart starting at 0 degrees Aries, then Gemini would fill that third house. All right, this arena shows how information moves through your life and how new ideas become future possibilities. What is beginning? New ideas or new ways of putting your ideas into words and action are up on deck. You might find yourself exploring a new interest or doing something new with an existing interest, meeting new people, writing, speaking, singing, etc. in new ways, or seeing an opportunity that was not visible before. The goal is not certainty. The goal is exploration. We want to explore. We want to use our curiosity, setting those intentions. Okay. Right. So if you're going to make deliberate moves with this new moon, you want to stay curious, ask questions, gather information, follow what captures your attention without demanding immediate results. The best opportunities often begin as simple curiosity. And man, I testify to that. I do. I can testify to that. So this new moon is at 24 degrees of Gemini. Make sure you can find 24 degrees of Gemini in your natal chart. And that new moon is forming outside of your chart. It forms outside of your chart. We're not talking about your natal chart. Okay. But as far as that new moon, so we're not talking about your moon. We're talking about the transit moon. Nomenclature matters when we're talking about astrology. If you want to do the real deal, everything else is just popular, blah, blah, blah. It doesn't mean it's the real thing. It's not the same. It's not the same, I tell you. If you want the journal prompts, make sure you head over to the Awake Space and check out the June issue of the magazine. The energy is going to keep moving fast. The energy is going to keep moving fast. It's a little bit wild. If you want to check out the predictions, those are in the Awake Space community. We're doing what's in the headlines. That goes out to magazine subscribers first and then to stargazers at the $5 levels on Tuesday. So I release it on Sunday or Monday, depending on when I get it done. It goes out to the magazine subscribers, and that's $15 level, $15 level and up. And it goes out to the stargazers at the $5 and her grandfather tears on Tuesday. Have a good week. Have a good week. Stay fresh. Stay curious. Know your confidence. Be queen. Be queen, no matter where it's happening in your chart.